Okay, the next part that we're going to be talking about is the organizational structure. We talked about the theory, what governs the management, the services that are delivered or whatever, but now let's talk about the organizations and how they are actually set up. And so I kind of introduced this in the last part of, or the part 3 of the organizational theory, talking about the pyramid and the brain. And so I'm going to be taking these models and telling you about the actual theory or the structure of how they're set up. Okay, continuing on with the definition of the organizational structures, then it depends on how an organization is set up, and it's set up for different reasons. Like, for example, if it's going to be set up more as a hierarchy, or if it's going to be which is more centralized or more decentralized, it's going to demonstrate in a lot of ways the commitment that a particular organization has to a set of policy direction of one policy direction over another. And you might say, well, exactly does that mean? Well, if there is a policy direction, like if it's going to be more conservative or it's going to be more liberal, it's going to be the people on top, the ones that are the political appointees that are carrying out the president's agenda, that's going to kind of dictate the way a particular mission of the organization is going to be set up and how the rules and regulations may or may not be implemented. The standard operating procedures of how they're going to be carried out. So it's going to it's going to promote some programs over other programs, and again, it kind of depends on who's running a particular organization. And you might say, well, that's not right. An organization should be apolitical, and I agree with you. It should be apolitical, but in effect, politics always plays a role. And again, that's what I'm saying. It casts doubts on that politics administration dichotomy that was being pushed by Woodrow Wilson, saying no, politics actually plays a part in the way the programs are delivered within a public organization, and they use the structure in order to carry these policy directions out. And so in the end, what happens is that it will provide more access and influence for some interest groups and for some stakeholders. So some people that are more well-connected or have more political clout, more political pull, will probably have more say in what's going on in a particular organization, such as, for example, the NRA, when it comes to different types of situations that may deal with public safety. So when it comes to the way the decisions are made within a bureaucracy, they can be centralized or they can be decentralized. And so when it's centralized, it is very much a control mechanism. And what it is that this organization is set up in a way to concentrate power at the top of the organization. Because a lot of times they say, well, you know what, if you really need a lot of control, if you need a lot of productivity, a lot of economy in the way that things are done, economies of scale, and that's what it is, efficiency, that you need to set it up in a way so that one person has more of a direct role in how people are going to be carrying out these policies that I was telling about, these standard operating procedures. So it's a pattern that focuses on the concentrating of power at the top of the organization, that the director will have most of the say of what's going on, and then it kind of trickles down to the rest of the bureaucracy or through the rest of the bureaucracy. So again, it is a control measure and it is an efficiency measure. Control measure because the directives will be carried out in the way that they think that they see fit. An efficiency measure because it's considered to be economies of scale and specialization, where people get as people work at their job longer, they get more efficient at what they do. Okay, so because an organization is so large, you're going to have a lot of tasks or a lot of different types of tasks that are going to have to be handled by the workers within a particular organization. And this particular this type of diversity and these types of tasks are going to be carried out by people who work in a unit or a department. And so when it comes to the management, the question then is, well, okay, well then how many people should a supervisor, how many people should a manager manage? And that's called the span of control. And typically the studies tend to indicate that the number of people that one particular manager should supervise should be usually between 7 and 10, but really no more than 10, because you really need to get to know your people and have better control over what they are doing and how you are managing them. So what the net effect that it has is that it increases the number of departments in the manager to staff ratio. Now that may be a good thing or a bad thing. through time, we have seen the span of control get smaller, or we have seen it get larger. As in more recent times, when government is being cut, when government is being downsized, where government is being or where a reduction in force is taken off, a lot of the middle managers are being cut off, so the span of control tends to get larger. And so basically the way that these organizations are set up for the span of control, or how the span of control, the departments are set up within this organization, is going to depend on the specialization that they are working on. For example, if you are working human resources, you may concentrate just on like the benefits part or just on the payroll part. So that's the type of specialization I'm talking about. Now, if you are more decentralized, then that pattern, that organizational pattern, kind of tends to distribute the power more broadly within an organization. And it's in a lot of ways, it's a more democratic way of doing things, because what it's trying to do is trying to bring other people in. What it's trying to do is saying, yes, other people can have a say in how these programs are going to be set up. And so they're going to be looking to their external clientele, or the people that they serve. They're going to have different types of advisory boards that citizens can actually participate in, have a voice in. And it's more empowering for the community, because they allow more community activism to be to take place, and for people, just regular citizens, not that if you're sitting on a board or you're in an elected position sitting on a board, if you're just a plain person that wants to have a say in this type of a decentralized decision-making model, you can have a say. And that's why in a lot of ways they say that public bureaucracies, especially if they're decentralized, they tend to be more democratic in that they will allow it for people to have a voice at the table, whereas in more centralized one, you don't always have a voice at the table. A citizen does not always have a voice at the table. Okay, so even though people do have a say, and people, a lot of times do want to have a say, say for example, if it's a city, what's going on with the streets, etc., like here in Corpus Christi, for example, why are the streets so bad? Well, they were saying, well, because we don't have the money. All right, then they were charging us extra money in our water bill, so there's a lot of money in the coffers over there. There's like millions of dollars out there. And just recently, they were saying, well, then why have the streets not been fixed? Well, so you can't say it's not the money anymore, because this particular fee that they've been charging us on our water bills has been going on for easily, I would say, 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years. So there's millions of dollars. But what was happening is that the management that was handling, or the manager, the director of the streets department, did not have a clue of what he was doing, or the way the city manager described it, it was a dysfunctional department, and so he kind of got, he got fired, or actually he was just demoted, and somebody else was hired in his place. So now maybe the streets will be changed, and so part of it was there was a lot of citizen input, a lot of citizen complaints, a lot of citizen unrest, if you want to call it that. I mean, people were just not happy with the way the streets were here in Corpus Christi, and still are not in Corpus Christi. But ultimately, the responsibility remains at the top levels. The city manager had to make a decision on how these day-to-day operations are going to be handled at the lower levels. If he thinks that that particular organization needed to be reorganized, well, that's what he did. And part of this assignment that you're going to have, this designing organizations, again, it's dysfunctional. So how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? Okay, so it does involve high levels of coordination. And so what they do for this decentralized paradigm is that they flatten the hierarchy. That's what they call it. And so there's a couple of models that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the team model, and we're going to be talking about the matrix model, or the adhocracy. And so this information about these models are in that handout that you will have about designing organizations, which is the assignment. Okay, so then the types of hierarchies that they have. So there's going to be, I talk about the hierarchy itself, the pyramid. I'll be talking about the matrix, and I'm going to be talking about the team. Those are the three models that I'm talking about. So the type of hierarchies that we have are the tall hierarchy, and this is the traditional one where there's a basic chain of command. You have like a regional director at the top, you may have some middle managers, then you have the street level bureaucrats. But there's also a bunch of different levels before you ever get to that point. It just depends on what a particular hierarchy looks like. There are examples of that in that designing organization that gives you several examples of that hierarchy. Uh, the reason that it is set up as a hierarchy, or the reasons a hierarchy is set up as a tall organization, is that so that there will be more managerial control. And it's, again, it's a control mechanism. And so the way that they set it up is going to be based on the division of labor, that specialization, that economies of scale. So this is what it's saying. The larger a bureaucracy is, if it uses a hierarchy as its organizational structure, we set up the departments based on specialization and the division of labor. The longer a person does their job, the better that they get at it. So and that way we can get more productivity out of them. Again, it's a control measure. Now, one of the problems in these hierarchies is deals with the communications. It's very top down. It's very centralized, but the thing is, as it's coming down, many times that information may be distorted. It may be the middle manager's take on what the upper division or the upper echelon is saying. You may not be sure what the exact directive is, so there may be a distortion. But that distortion also goes back the other way. Okay, does that mean that people that are on the bottom level, the bottom rungs of that hierarchy, have no say? I'm not saying that they don't. I'm saying that a lot of times if you go to your boss and say, this is a problem, this is an issue, I think this is how it could possibly be addressed or whatever, it's up to that middle level manager to decide whether or not he wants to take it higher or not. And a lot of times they don't. So there's distortion. It's an issue, it's a problem, it's always been a problem. Okay, some of the alternate forms of organizational structures, or the way that you can set up, is as a matrix or as a T model. And the reason that they did this is because they're saying, you know what, we're not making widgets anymore. We are a service industry, but the things that we produce are not tangible. They're not widgets. What we do is that we service people. The types of tasks and skills that we need to do are not assembly type models. So we need like another way that we need to be looking at the organizational structure. So the units are designed by function instead of by task. Put this widget in here, screw this driver in, or whatever. It should be designed by function instead of the task. And so it involves complex learning and complex knowledge because the technologies are changing. And that just means you're looking at how to do things in a different way given the technologies that we have, or even employing new technologies that may be coming about. If you were younger, you grew up with more of a technological innovation, more technology in your life since you were young. But if you were like 50 and above, you didn't. And either you get with a program or you just like SOL. You know what that means, right? Okay, the matrix model is also called adhocracy. And so what they said is that, well, we see that people have gotten more educated and and more specialized in what they do. And so we think that there needs to be, it's a rise of professionalism. That's what I'm talking about. And what we see is that that we need new management styles to try to address, this new type of professionalism that we have and the new types of projects that we might have. And so this one, the different types of hierarchies that we have. So this one consists of specialists. They might be like engineers, or they might be environmental scientists, or they might be budget analysts. It might be something that they're saying, I am qualified to do this job because I received the education, the credentialing that I need to be able to do this job. So that is something that they know how to do, but they do it in conjunction with different departments, with different types of people that are basically working in a project. And so they need more of a functional structure. So what they do is that they in this matrix model, and again, look at the organizational design that's in that Designing Organizations handout that you have. That you can see, or you should see, that the way it's organized is along the project lines. So the horizontal ones that are going across, those are the functional tasks that need to be performed. the functional tasks that need to be performed. So it's kind of like a picket fence. It's a matrix. The vertical lines, the ones up and down, are the ones that connect the employee to their functional home. So the horizontal lines connect the employees to the specific project, and the vertical lines to their functional home. Okay, so there are some problems in having to do trying to use this matrix model. It's usually more of a short-term project type of hierarchy or organizational structure that you need, because and not a long-term one. It's something that's time specific. Now, part of it is that you're accountable to two managers, one for the functional one for your home. So you have two of them that you're having to respond to. Now that can be kind of different, kind of difficult sometimes if you see that they're wanting different things, and how are you going to try to please two bosses? You know your profession, but you also have to play ball with, whomever you're being supervised by. It works best for people that are during times when you're outsourcing projects, when you're working on projects for a particular thing, like for example, a project, environmental project for like a new dam or something. That's a short-term project. You need a lot of people having say in what's going on, how much it's going to cost, what kind of environmental impact statement it's going to have. We need to have the engineers, et cetera, et cetera. So those types of short-term projects. And they will be outsourced to some extent, because it's not like you're going to go and build it yourself, but you do have to get the cost analysis on that, the economic impact, the environmental impact. Okay, so the next one is the team model, and this is more the flattening of the hierarchy. This is more of that brain metaphor that we were talking about, and so this one definitely does emphasize decentralization. And the team model was actually derived from the TQM decision making, or I'm sorry, the TQM management style, organizational style that I was talking about, where you use statistics to a large extent, but more than anything else, it's like you work in teams. So this is the premise, is that you have small integrated groups from diverse disciplines or departments, if you want to call them that they're bringing in their expertise in order to fix a dysfunctional problem, to fix a dysfunctional organization, to fix a dysfunctional unit. So this one focuses on processes, whereas the other one, the matrix model, focuses on functions. So you focus on the common process to deliver these types of administrative services, and a lot of the cities have gone to this one-stop shopping, and even a lot of the states have gone to the one-stop shopping, because the complaint from many citizens is that we keep getting the runaround, so we don't even know where to go anymore, because we just have to stand in one line or wait to be seen by one person, only for them only to tell us that no, you're talking to the wrong person. You have to talk to somebody else. People get really tired of that, and so the complaints have been so huge. And especially, say, for example, even at this university, when you're dealing with people at the round building. So they had to go to that one-stop shopping model, so that you can talk to somebody in that circular area that can at least help you in some way, or tell you where you need to go. Because people just get tired of having to deal with bureaucracy, and bureaucracy does get a bad rap for that particular reason. So some of the characteristics then of this team model is that they are organized around the process, as I said, not the function. The process and the delivery of ongoing services. Okay, the matrix model was a specific project. The team model is more appropriate for ongoing services. And so the lines of authority are more along functional lines, or that's another way of saying basically you have one supervisor, not two supervisors. And so it's driven in many ways to satisfy the clientele, to satisfy citizen needs, because people are complaining too much, saying, hey man, we're taxpayers, we're paying your salaries, we're getting the runaround, we're not happy. You need to be able to do something about it. We need to have more, we need for the city or for the state or whatever to listen to our needs, because after all, you are accountable to us, and they're absolutely right. The people that work in public service are definitely accountable to the citizen taxpayers. Okay, so which one is best? How would you know which one is best? Well, this is where we go back to the contingency theory, to the different types of theoretical models. So the contingency theory says there is no one best way. It depends on the situation. It depends on the contingency. And so some of the things that you have to consider is are environmental stability, control, and the nature of work. So when it comes to the environmental stability, it says, you know, if you have an organization that's very stable, it does not have a lot of internal input into what needs to be done, probably a hierarchical organizational structure would be best for it. But if you are in a very unstable type of environment where you have a lot of people trying to tell you what needs to be done, it's a project that needs to be complete, you know, you need to take this into account or that into account, or new information keeps coming in on a pretty regular basis, then you need to have people that can make decisions right away. And so a matrix would be more appropriate in that particular situation. Now, if you want control, if you as a manager want control, then you centralize decision making, and that's done through the hierarchical model. If you want on-the-spot decisions, then you can go to a team model, because that way you have people from different departments that can give you information of what you need. If you are highly specialized, then you would go to the matrix model. And then when it comes to the nature of work itself, it kind of depends on what kind of organization or the type of work that you do. I introduced these concepts to you before. If it's organic, the brain metaphor, then either a matrix or a team, if that's the type of work that you do, then a matrix or a team model would probably be the best. If it's mechanistic in nature, like very specialized, like a very prescriptive in how you do things, like you have like a script that needs to be read, like a lot of the, say for example, if you work for the state and if you work for you know, these eligibility services, whether it be CHIPS or Medicaid or food stamps or whatever, what they're saying is you have to be income eligible, and this is how we're going to qualify you to be income eligible. You need to meet these guidelines. So I have to ask you about these guidelines. So there's not a lot of discretion in either, you know, in what you do. I mean, they do have like a range saying it's got to be from, you know, within this particular range of income, range of expenses, or whatever. But it's not like you have a lot of discretion of whether you can give somebody the services that they need or not. Okay, that's more mechanistic in the way that you do things. So in that way, it's more of a hierarchical structure. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the assignment, which is the designing organizations. As I said, I asked you to pull that information before this lecture so you could kind of get an idea of what I was talking about, and you will have to go back and reread it and incorporate some of what I'm telling you, what it's saying in this particular handout that's on Blackboard, plus what's in the book, because the book also gives you information about that. And so you're going to be looking at that case study. And the case study is basically a state agency. And so, you know, there's problems with it. They're saying, how can these problems be fixed? So you have to look at it. You have to configure the organizational structure. You have saying, okay, this isn't working. Okay, what problems am I going to identify? What kind of theories am I going to use to guide the way I'm going to be organizing this? So there's 3 theories that I want you to use. You can use a hierarchical theory. You can use a T model, you can use a matrix model, but you have to justify why you're doing this based on what the theory is saying. You have to tell me about the span of control. You have to tell me about the functions and what they're going to be doing and why you're setting it up that way. Okay, so there's no right or wrong answer. Look at the guidelines. If you have questions, just email me and I'll try to answer them for you. It's not long. It's an essay. I want it in like more of a narrative, like a short paper, if you want to call it that. And so for that one, no more than 2 pages, must be typed in double space, Arial 12 point font. Use an essay format. Use the text to guide your reasons for redesign of the organizations. You may use references from other sources, but you cite them. Cite them. I'm really big on citations. You have to cite them, otherwise it's plagiarism. And you get a 0 if I see no citations. and give me a reference page using this. So I've changed this. This is going to be worth 15% of your grade. Before I had been using it as a group work with a group presentation or whatever. Well, since we're going to this online format, that's not going to be possible. So it's each individual has to do it themselves. I'm not saying that you cannot work in groups if you choose to work in groups, but I want you to hand it in individually, and I will grade it individually. And that assignment is due April the 6th.